لا يتدبرون القرآن
ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا
فلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. With verses from the Qur'an, Surah Al-Baqarah, and still in the set of verses that talks about the relationship between husband and a wife, with marriage and divorce, and breastfeeding to the children and the rights of the children, which is the outcome of the family or having this relationship, regulations, laws, orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brings all that is good, if people would fulfill it according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, fulfills the purpose of our life and the comprehensive meaning of that purpose, and that is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. That the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just in one action or the other, it's the whole entire life of a Muslim. If we really comprehend this meaning of what ibadah or what worship is, our state as Muslims will be totally different. We are in a time where people basically are misunderstanding what Islam is all about. Muslims, yes, in many parts of the world, we need to understand the deen of Allah according to how the companions radiallahu anhum understood it, according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And as a result of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them established on the land. But when we understand the religion of Islam like others would understand their religions or false religions or whatever, this is definitely a misery that we need to lift, and we need to purify ourselves and to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from such deficiency, and then we would really embrace all the different orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the religion of Islam. So the religion of Islam protected the rights of the wife, the rights of the husband, the rights of the offspring, the rights of the children. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed with regards to this verses in the Qur'an and a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, one of which this verse number 233. Verse number 233 from Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah in the Qur'an, the longest surah of the Qur'an, the surah that if it's recited in the home, it gets rid from this home of any forms of sorcery or jinn or whatever there is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a surah that comes in the Day of Judgment for the ones that used to recite it and memorized it as a way of protecting the person, intercessing for the person in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse number 233, it's a bit long verse, recited inshallah ta'ala, and then roughly recites the meaning of it, and then we go word after another to get to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. والوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين لمن أراد أن يتم الرضاعة وعلى المولود له رزقهن وكسوتهن بالمعروف لا تكلف نفس إلا وسعها لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك فإن أرادا فصالا عن تراض منهما وتشاور فلا جناح عليهما وإن أردتم أن تسترضعوا أولادكم فلا جناح عليكم إذا سلمتم ما آتيتم بالمعروف واتقوا الله واعلموا أن الله بما تعملون بصير. Which means mothers may breastfeed their children 2 complete years for whoever wishes to complete the nursing period. Upon the father is the mother's provision and their clothing according to what is acceptable. No person is charged with more than his capacity. No mother should be harmed through her child, and no father through his child. And upon the fathers here is a duty like that of the father. And if they both desire weaning through mutual consent from both of them and consultation, there is no blame upon either of them. And if you wish to have your children nursed by a substitute, there is no blame upon you, as long as you give payment according to what is acceptable. And fear Allah and know that Allah is seeing of what you do. As we heard, this verse it talks about mothers breastfeeding their children, or basically the breastfeeding of the child, and how can that be affected if divorce happened, which is the subject of the previous verses, and who would take care of the child if they're a child, who would take care of that child with breastfeeding and so on, which is one of the rights of the children, to be breastfed. This is the right of the child, and that's why it's the duty, of course, of the mother to do that. Or someone else as a substitute, someone that would breastfeed the child, and we heard some of the rulings of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ. That al-walidat, meaning the mothers, and it literally means the ones that gave birth. The woman that gave birth to her child, يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ. يُرْضِعْنَ, breastfeeding their children, أَوْلَادَهُنَّ, their children, حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ, 2 complete years. حَوْلَيْن, 2 years. كَامِلَيْن, complete. And no, not less than that. This is the rights of the child, to be breastfed for 2 complete years. As we heard towards the end of the verse, unless with consultation with one another, if it's something that is good for the child, that as a result of some circumstances or whatever, if they agree together, meaning the husband and the wife, and those who are responsible for the child, if the husband and the wife are not there, then with their consensus, then it can be less than 2 years. But this is the right of the child, to be breastfed for 2 years. And that's why it's very important for mothers to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not to be more concerned about their own being and their own beauty, or whatever reasons that a wife or a mother, for example, would not breastfeed her child. This is a duty. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the woman. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from the mothers. Unless she is capable of doing that, there's a condition that she has, this is something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put burden on someone that he cannot bear. But if people have the ability to do that, and they choose otherwise, just because of the fact that they don't like that, or they want to, or they think that this will be against their freedom of having certain times to enjoy their life, or to go out, or to work, or whatever, this is the real job. This is the job of the Muslim mother, that she would take care of her child. There's nothing more rewardable and more honored than this. And when people would leave their children and they would not breastfeed their child just because they want to work, or so that their career won't be affected, whatever the career is, what is the purpose of our life? This is the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, that the person becomes, and forgive me for the statement, becomes so greedy that everybody's concerned about their own benefit. When people get married and they're only greedy when it comes to, and they're greedy when it comes to this relationship, what am I going to get from that relationship? When a person would have a child and not thinking about the child, and not having the ithar and the goodness, and preferring them even over our own selves, sometimes a person would not have these beautiful meanings, but instead being greedy. What benefit I would get? We're living in a time when everybody is referring to himself, me. Everything is myself, everything is myself. And this is something that, yes, it's important for the person to take care of oneself, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to fulfill certain rights towards one another, especially those who are closer to oneself, and one of which, one's child, which is definitely, it's a very important meaning here. So this is a duty that mothers should observe, and they should seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be patient with the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is again the rights of the child. And we don't need to talk about the health benefits that a child would get as a result of being breastfed. And not just health benefit, but mental health also. Something that affects the upbringing of the human being, to be brought in such a comfort and such a proper environment with the love of the mother. The relationship between the mother and her child when the breastfeeding process is going on, it's not just the physical provisions or food or milk that she is feeding her child. It's something beyond just the physical things that happens there. It's the relationship, it's the love that she passes to the child, it's the mental security that is needed as a human being to be brought up as someone that is settled with one's emotions and one's mental capacity and so on. All of that is affected by the fact of the mother breastfeeding her child. And we can go on and on with this and the benefits of it. But again, as Muslims, if we recite the Qur'an and we agreed that we would listen to the Qur'an with the intentions that we want to fulfill what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Once we know that this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, the matter is over. Whether we see the wisdom of it or behind it or not. Whether we see or we think that maybe our affairs will be better otherwise, this is a bad attitude. This is not what's supposed to be in the life of a Muslim. We put forward what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. So a mother, once she reads this, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ, that mothers would breastfeed their children for 2 complete years, the matter is over. This is their duty. They would do that. They would fulfill the rights of the child according to the best of their capacity. Unless there's a condition. Then ask the people of knowledge, ask a Muslim doctor that is trustworthy, that would give a verdict in such a case. But normally, right, this is the exception. The norm is, this is the rights of the child, and we should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why these verses ends with, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. Fear Allah. Be dutiful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fulfill the rights of others if you want your rights to be given to you in full. If you seek the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the acts of worship, we live our life not isolated from one another, but there are certain rights that has to be observed, one of which is to breastfeed the child. لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَن يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَ. The 2 years, the 2 complete years, is for those who wants to complete the period of al-rida'a or breastfeeding. This is the perfect period. Unless, again, there's a benefiting thing for reducing it, there's no harm, there's no sin in such a case. But with still the breastfeeding, it's something that the child, he has the right to have that, even if it's not the 2 years, but something that has to be fulfilled. وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. See the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something that human beings, within their own instinct as human beings, a mother loves her child, a father loves his child. Mothers are mothers everywhere, and they would clothe their children, they would bring food to their children, right? You don't have to order them. And this is an amazing thing. You won't find elsewhere or anywhere in which people are gathering the mothers and telling them, feed your children, clothe your children, right? Because usually this is something that is an instinct thing in the life of any proper human being as a mother or a father. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more merciful towards the child than the mother towards her own child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more merciful to us than our own selves and our own mothers and our own fathers. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ, the one that has been given birth for, which is the father here. رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. رِزْقُهُنَّ is referring to the women, because it's the nun and niswa here. Right? Some people, they misunderstand this part of the verse. It means that it's upon the father, it's upon the one that the birth was given for him, meaning the father. رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. The provision of the mother and the clothing of the mother is for her. It's the rights. She has the rights for her to be clothed and to be provided for by the husband, by the father of the child. This is the order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Upon the father is the mother's provision and their clothing according to what is acceptable, according to the ma'roof, according to the goodness, that a person would do that, spending from his wealth onto his wife, and in case of what's mentioned before, if they are divorced, and that's the context, so that's the proper context of the verses, that you have a husband and a wife and they are divorced, and there is a child as a result of this marriage, and the child is being breastfed. It's the duty of the father to provide for the mother if she is breastfeeding his child, to provide for her, her food, her clothing, her shelter. He needs to provide that because she is taking care of his child. She's breastfeeding his child. And of course it's her child also. But this becomes a duty upon the father to shelter her and to provide for her, even if they are divorced. Of course, if they are together, then the meaning is something that is obvious. Of course, they would do that. It's the duty of the father or the husband to clothe his wife and to provide for her and so on, to give her a shelter. But at times of divorce, it is not a duty upon him unless she is breastfeeding his child. That in that case, he's supposed to provide for her and shelter her and so on, by the ma'ruf, by what is good, by what is acceptable in their environment. We continue inshallah ta'ala right after the break, so stay with us.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن
إذا دكت الأرض دكا
Do you want to learn how to recite the Qur'an? Do you want to read Islamic books in Arabic? You may enroll in a small group.
العسل من السوق اشترى. نعم اشترى.
A private lesson.
من مثلها في فضلها.
من مثلها في فضلها.
Or at your own pace to fit your schedule.
هل أنت طالب في المعهد؟
Courses for sisters with female instructors. We're bringing you the latest software technology, professional instructors, and a state-of-the-art classroom to the comfort of your home. Enroll now in Huda Academy. Huda Academy, your gateway to authentic Islamic knowledge.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Still with verse 233 from Surah Al-Baqarah that talks about breastfeeding the child. After divorce happened and the mother is breastfeeding her child, it's the duty on the father to provide for her, for his former wife, which is the mother of the child, and to clothe her also, as long as she is breastfeeding his child. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَا تُكَلَّفُ نَفْسٌ إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. There's no person is charged with more than his capacity. لَا تُكَلَّفُ نَفْسٌ إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. When it comes to this context, meaning that if the father is rich, then he should spend accordingly. If he's poor, he should not be burdened by something that is not in his capacity. This is an issue where you have the mother and the father, or the former wife and the former husband. She can be rich and he might be poor. And is it important or obligatory for her to be given from the father when she's breastfeeding his child, according to her status, according to her standards, because she's rich, or according to his standards when he is poor, for example? If he's rich, he should give accordingly. If he is poor, some said he should still give her what is according to her standards, the provisions, the clothing, the shelter that she deserves, or this is her norm, this is her life. But some said, according to this part of the verse, لا تكلف نفس إلا وسعها. There's no person is to be burdened or to be charged with more than his capacity. If this is his limits, this is his status, then he should give accordingly. If he's rich, accordingly. If he's poor, also he would give according to his rich and his being poor. لا تكلف نفس إلا وسعها. And this is the fairness that people should be observing. But still, it's the duty of the father to provide for the mother if she is breastfeeding his child or her child. Her child, that is his child, of course. لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده. Which means, no mother should be harmed through her child, and no father through his child. لا تضار والدة بولدها. The mother should not be harmed by her child, by being deprived from being clothed and provisions, because she is given her time to the child. That's why it's the duty on the Muslims to make sure that the mother is a mother, that this is a job for her. This is what the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sharia of the religion of Islam would support. Meaning, the mother, this is the best job that a woman can do on the face of earth, is to be a mother, to breastfeed her child, to teach the child, and to raise the child according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from her. She's married, the father is supporting her accordingly, whether he is poor or rich. She is not something that is upon her to provide for the child or to provide for her husband. It's the duty of the husband, and he would provide for her. If she's divorced and she's still breastfeeding the child, then it is the duty of the husband to spend on his wife, or on his former wife. Say that she is not divorced, or the husband died, for example, and she has no means whatsoever, then it's the duty of the Muslims to give her the time that she would breastfeed her child, so that she doesn't have to go out and work and ignore or neglect this child that needs his mother. See, this meaning is something that is neglected in many parts of the world nowadays, especially among the Muslims also. This is something that should be observed. This is basically investment in any society, that the generation to be brought up is a healthy generation, not just physically, but mentally also. They are in need of this special relationship. They are in need of their mothers. They are in need for their mothers to breastfeed them and to raise them in the proper way. So the father would spend. If they are divorced, he would still spend. Or if not, then it's the state, it's the government, it's the Muslims, to make sure that she is being given what would make her support her child. So she should not be harmed by her child. وَلَا مَوْلُودٌ لَهُ بِوَلَدِ وَلَا مَوْلُودٌ لَهُ. This is what is meant here. The father, he should not be harmed by his son, by ordering him to give more than what his capacity is. If he is a poor person, then he should give according a portion from his money and wealth, of course, but according to what his level is. So they should not have any form of harms towards one another. And the issue of harm has been repeated, because this is something that is part of the religion of Islam. As the Prophet ﷺ said, الضرر يزال, and he said also, لا ضرر ولا ضرار, which means harm should be removed. This is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. This religion brings all that is good, the orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's in the relationship between the human being and his Lord in matters of worship, or in transactions and relationship between one another. The rules from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to bring what is good. It's not just to test the people, but it's to bring what is good. So that's why the forbiddance of causing any harm is something that is forbidden in Islam. لا ضرر ولا ضرار. It's forbidden for a person to cause harm to others, and it's forbidden for a person to be harmed. لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده. They should not harm one another. وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك. وعلى الوارث. It's upon الوارث. الوارث, the heir. The father died, the one that inherited the father, right? It is the duty upon that person is to spend on the child of the father that died, and to provide for the mother that is breastfeeding the child of the father that died. So if the grandfather is alive, then, and he inherited from his son that died, then he has to support that. He has to support the wife of, or the former wife of his son when she's breastfeeding his child. وَعَلَى الْوَارِثِ مِثْلُ ذَلِكَ. So if the father is not there, it's the duty of the heir, the one that inherited him. فَإِنْ أَرَادَ فِصَالًا. Then another ruling. فَإِنْ أَرَادَ فِصَالًا عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِّنْهُمَا وَتَشَاوُرٍ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمْ. If they both, فَإِنْ أَرَادَ فِصَالًا, meaning that they would stop the breastfeeding, if they decided to wean the child before, of course, the 2 years, عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِّنْهُمَا, they both agree. Not one is forcing the other to agree, not because he doesn't have money or he refused to support his former wife or whatever. They both agreed that they would wean the child before the 2 years, وَتَشَاوُرْ, and by consultation, because it's a serious matter, it's such an important one, that according to that decision, the life of that child would be affected. And sometimes for health reasons, whether she is pregnant or whatever there is, but it has to be with the seriousness. It's not just the decision of the mother that she would quit breastfeeding her child just because of any reason, or she doesn't feel like it, or she's bored, or she wants to go to work, or whatever there is. This is a right that has to be observed. That's why this is a duty. This is the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is something that we need to repeat it all the time. This is a serious matter, and we are warned in the verses of the Qur'an not to transgress the limits, not to take the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in jest or a matter of play, and it's not a serious matter, or to belittle it. These are orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if they decided among one another with the acceptance and the consultation and so on, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا, there's no sin upon them. If that's the case, because they decided what is better for the child, not what is better for themselves. وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمْ أَن تَسْتَرْضِعُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ, and if you want, if you wish, أَن تَسْتَرْضِعُوا. تَسْتَرْضِعُوا, الرضاعة is to breastfeed. تَسْتَرْضِعُوا, meaning that you would ask someone else to breastfeed your child, someone as a substitute, another woman, she would breastfeed your child. فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ, there is no sin. You can do that. There is no harm of having someone else to foster and to breastfeed the child other than the mother. Whether it's because of a reason she has or whatever there is no harm. But this is a duty upon them, for the child to be raised in the proper way. فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ, there is no harm, there is no sin unto you. إِذَا سَلَّمْتُمْ مَا أَتَيْتُمْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, as long as you would pay them what is of matters of goodness and what is acceptable without being unfair to them. And this is something that some of the women, they would do that as a result of being in need. A mother, she has children and she's poor, for example, and she would breastfeed others' children when they are young, before they are 2 years old, so that this is a way for her to make money. And definitely this is such a noble thing. Why? Because she would help those who are not able to breastfeed their children, and of course that takes from the woman's health and so on, and that's why she should be provided for. So there's no harm if she gets money or takes money as a result of that. And of course there's implications. There are rulings that would be related to this, one of which, she becomes a foster mother to the child. That means when he grows up, it is not permissible for him to marry her, for example. Or the ones that are breastfed from her, they become brothers and sisters to that foster child. That means he cannot marry them. And her husband becomes his father from suckling or from breastfeeding and so on, and the different rulings that is mentioned in the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, with the ruling that refers to that. So this is something which is in another part of the Qur'an. So the verse here is pertaining to those who would breastfeed others other than their own children. Then there's no sin if they, as long as you would give them their due money that with ma'ruf, with acceptable terms, without committing any forms of injustice or unfairness. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ, and fear Allah and know that Allah is seeing of what you do. Of all of what is being said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing what you do. And as a result of that, there is an outcome. There is something that will be the implication of the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing you. He's not seeing you and that's it. He's seeing you so that you will be either rewarded or you are subjected to the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless He forgives. But He is seeing you, wanting from you to do what He wants subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not like someone watching something, right? Something happening. It's totally different than someone, for example, and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best example. When we see as human beings, a person has a factory or a workplace, he has cameras there to watch the workers. And when he's seeing them, they know that for the owner of the place, if he is looking at them, it's totally different than someone, for example, in the streets that has no authority over them whatsoever if he looks at them. Totally different how they would act and interact and work and so on. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing is the like of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have to believe in, and we have to confirm it. And we say there is nothing is the like of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do not know how, but we know that this is a fact. This is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We believe in it. We do not resemble it to any of the attributes of the human beings. We do not deny it. We believe in it, and it has an effect in our lives. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He sees His servants, the human beings, it's not the same as a human being would be watching you. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the owner of the heavens and the earth. The one that created us and sent us on the face of earth for a purpose. And all of us shall return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He's given us the time and given us the chance after another to repent to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala and to fulfill the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the most merciful. He gave us the time to repent and the chance to repent. And if any deficiencies that we would do, that we would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, and the person would excel day after another. The more we live, the more we learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, the more that we would apply what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us in relationships, in all of our affairs. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. See how many times it's been repeated. It's been repeated so many times, especially in the verses here that talks about divorce and breastfeeding and marriages and so on. Because people sometimes, they are not aware that this is part of the deen, this is part of being worshippers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they will be asked about it in the day of judgment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from them to deal and to treat this relationship not according to what their desires, not according to the norm of the people, but according again to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to the breastfeeding of the children, that this is their right. So fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and know that this is a duty that you have to fulfill. And the rewards are given from the same sort of deed that a person would do. And know with certainty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with what you do, is basir. See, some of the verses would have the basir, or He's all-seeing, comes before your actions. Inna Allaha بِبَصِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. That Allah is all-seeing by what you do. And here, وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. That know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for what you do, right? See, in translation, of course it's proper English to say, and fear Allah, and know that Allah is seeing of what you do. But literally, if you translate it literally, it means, and fear Allah, or be truthful to Allah, and know that Allah, by what you do, is seeing. Is by what you do is seeing. Of course, this might not be a proper English to say that with the perfect way of saying as a sentence, but it has a significance here. And the significance here is that be aware of your actions. Your actions comes first here as in the order of the statement, because what you do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing that. So focus on what you do. Make sure that you do it according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, as it's mentioned in this verse when it comes to the breastfeeding and so on. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us this understanding and to give us the state of remembrance. Because either a person become in state of forgetfulness and deal with others, whether it's a child or a wife or whatever there is, according to what the society is, according to his own upbringing, people would have the excuses, this is how I was brought up. This is how my family raised me. Right? This is never an excuse. This is an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Qur'an, that no person will be dealt with something that is over his own capacity. So it's in our capacity. We just need to be patient and to fulfill the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We continue inshallah ta'ala after the break with the next verse, verse number 234 from Surah Al-Baqarah. So stay with us inshallah.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن.
Ask Huda.
If you're still in Mecca or close by to Mecca, then you have to know that you are still in the state of ihram. As long as it is not for sale, then he doesn't have to pay zakah for it. Forbade praying witr similar to Maghrib prayer. So whoever prays witr 3 rak'ahs and sitting after the second rak'ah as if he's praying Maghrib prayer, this is forbidden, this is haram. Euthanasia is permissible with animals but not with human beings. If an animal is suffering, killing an animal for a legitimate reason is permissible. Both are acceptable, but the majority say that after the ruku' is the place of qunut. But both was reported.
Have a question or concern on your mind? Huda TV decided, based on popular demand, we will be bringing you an additional episode of Ask Huda with Shaykh Azim bin Luqman Al-Hakim live from Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. With verse number 234 of Surah Al-Baqarah, another rulings that related to marriages and what comes after. In the case when a husband dies, and what's the iddah, what's the waiting period that comes, or for the wife if her husband dies, for a widow. Is it the same as the waiting period after divorce happens or not? It's different. And the evidence of that is in this verse number 234. It also shows the type of faithfulness that should be present in such a relationship, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accordingly ordered the wife to wait for a certain period that is not permissible for her to get married till this waiting period is finished. It also shows the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of course also the way that, or the wisdom or the fairness of the religion of Islam. That women before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Qur'an to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were dealt with so much injustices. Until now, they are dealt with so much injustices if they are not under the shade of the religion of Islam. Some people might think otherwise, but if we really deeply think and look into how the situation of women all over the earth, with them being exploited, with them being treated unfairly, and to take them out of their nature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them as women, as sisters, as mothers, as grandmothers, and so on and so forth, then we would see the fairness of the religion of Islam and the beauty of the religion of Islam, and fulfilling the rights of others according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Verse number 234, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم والذين يتوفون منكم ويذرون أزواجا يتربصن بأنفسهن 4 أشهر و10 فإذا بلغن أجلهن فلا جناح عليكم فيما فعلن في أنفسهن بالمعروف والله بما تعملون خبير. Which means, and those who are taken in death among you and leave wives behind, they, meaning the wives, shall wait 4 months and 10 days. And when they have fulfilled their term, then there is no blame upon you for what they do with themselves in an acceptable manner, and Allah is fully acquainted with what you do. وَالَّذِينَ يُتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ. And those among you who would be taken by death. This is an inevitable situation here. Everybody shall face death. See how the Qur'an is talking about death. Death to us, it's such a calamity. And of course it's a calamity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called it musibatul maut. That this is a calamity of death. Something definitely no human being is wanting such a thing to come as fast as it can. But this is a fact of life. And the rulings in the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ deals with life and death and everything. And something that it gives you that feeling that we need to be prepared for the moment of death. Something that the Prophet ﷺ ordered us to remember all the time. And to say it all the time. أكثروا ذكر هذه من الذات. Mention death a lot. This is the advice of the Prophet ﷺ. So that we are always brought back to the reality of this world. We're not deceived. We're not intoxicated by means of intoxications that takes us away from the reality of what this life is all about and what's coming ahead. It's a continuous route, this life to the hereafter. And we all created to fulfill a purpose, and that is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And the moment of death is coming no matter what we do. No matter how much wealth we spend. No matter how healthy we are. No matter how young we are, it doesn't matter. Death is death. And there's no time, there is no conditions. It's just something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained unto the human being. So as a result of that, we need to be steadfast on the deen of Allah. وَالَّذِينَ يَتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ. Among you, if they die, men, وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا. And they leave behind wives. يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ 4 أَشْهُرٍ و10. يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ, meaning that they should wait and wait for 4 months and 10 days. يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ. يَتَرَبَّصْنَ, it has the meaning of when you wait for something and you keep watching what you're waiting for. This is basically what the word يَتَرَبَّصْنَ gives the feeling, that it's not just waiting, but you're waiting and you're watchful of what you're waiting for to end. That means you need to be aware of it. not something that a person is in state of forgetfulness, but they should wait. That's why there's the implication of the death of her husband, that she is to stay in her household. She is not to leave unless there's a necessity for her to leave. She should not beautify herself for people to come and to ask her for marriage and so on. This is not permissible, as we would see in the next verses in the coming episode, inshallah ta'ala. But the waiting period that it's not permissible for her to get married in is not 3 menses, like the divorce. Divorce is 3 menses, as we got to know before. But in matters of death, she is to wait longer than that, 4 months and 10 days. This is by the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise. Whether the wisdom behind it is to make sure that there is no child is being conceived, to make sure that she is not pregnant, or that this is a longer period of time, and it's a way to show the faithfulness that the wife would have towards her husband. So it's a little bit longer period. Divorce, maybe the divorce when it happened, and as a result of the divorce, they don't have that proper feelings towards one another, so maybe she wants the period of after the divorce to happen quickly, so it's only 3 menses. But when the husband dies, usually that the wife is sad, and the wife is going through the sad period, so it's a bit longer time, 4 months and 10 days. And whether people would scientifically discover that this is something that is mandatory to make sure that there's nothing whatsoever in the womb of the mother and so on, and something that people mentioned when it comes to the seminal fluid, when it is inside of the womb of the mother, it takes a period like that for all of its effect to be cleaned and to be away. Meaning that she might not get pregnant by this, but if she's married to another husband, it was proven scientifically that if she conceives a child from someone else, that child might have some of the attributes of the former husband because of something still present within her. Scientifically, this is something that people can refer to, some researches and so on. But what we care about here is this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know best that Allah knows and we do not know. And this is for the perfect way of life. And definitely, it's the best, and otherwise, other than this order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bad and it's evil. So it's 4 months and 10 days. فَإِذَا بَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنْ, and if they reach this period, 4 months and 10 days, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي مَا فَعَلْنَ فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, then there is no harm on you, whether it's on the guardians or even the person that died. But when it comes to the guardians, there is no harm on you if they would do to themselves what's with acceptable terms by the matters of goodness, meaning if she would get married and so on. This is definitely something that is permissible for her, which is something also that should be established in the Muslim society. Sometimes the divorced wife or the wife that is a widow, by the pressure of the society, makes it difficult for her to remarry. That should not be there. If she wants to stay not married as a result of being faithful to her husband, that's up to her. And this is definitely such a great meaning, of course. Because the wife or the woman in the hereafter, if her husband enters Jannah and she enters Jannah, if she has been married to more than one, and they all enter Jannah, paradise, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for the believers, she will be with the later of them. Or she will be with the one that has best manners, right? So if she wants to stay faithful towards her husband, and she's hoping and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they both become in Jannah as a husband and wife, this is such a goodness thing from her, but as long as it does not bring any harm to her. If she is in need to get married, definitely this is actually something permissible. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would want from her, especially again that it would bring what is good for her. So in that case, she would wait for the period 4 months and 10 days, and there's no harm to her whatsoever, there's no sin on her if she would get married, but it shouldn't be the pressure of the society and so on. Wallahu bima ta'maluna khabir, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fully acquainted with what you do, whether you do it secretly or openly. And that's why the continuous and the repeated order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for people to be always watchful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what they are doing. their speech, their actions, their desires, their intentions, everything, to make sure and to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. So we can deceive human beings very easily. We can show them something and inside of our hearts and our feelings something else. But we cannot do that when it comes to the Creator of the heavens and the earth. So that's why we need to be truthful with our own selves, to be truthful with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if we want something, we are steadfast in the path of seeking what we want. If you want the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be steadfast in the route that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained for us. And when it comes to the waiting period, as we would get to see in the next verses inshallah ta'ala, that it's not permissible for the widow to have any form of a relationship, even if it's permissible for somebody to be engaged to her, for someone to tell her that he would marry her after the waiting period is finished. This is all not permissible. It is not permissible whatsoever, and this is by the great wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of which, if there's a child conceived, then this is a period where it makes sure that there's nothing whatsoever from their previous relationship. And even if they were far away from each other, meaning the husband and the wife, and he died. He was traveling, for example, for 4 months or 6 months or whatever, and he died. Still she has to wait for 4 months and 10 days. It shouldn't be like, well, there's no child is being conceived as a result of the relationship because he's been already traveling or whatever. It doesn't matter. This is the order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that once death is there, then there is a waiting period of 4 months and 10 days. Even if the marriage is not consummated. If they had only the contract, the marriage contract, and they did not consummate the marriage yet, and the husband dies, she is to wait 4 months and 10 days. So this is the order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it did not specify that it's only for those who had the marriage consummated. وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا. They leave behind wives. So whether the marriage has been consummated or not, the waiting period is 4 months and 10 days. We also see in the verse and the previous verse how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the orders and the rulings, and how that is related to matters of iman, matters of belief in the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be something that is witnessed in all of our affairs. It is not just a session of knowledge that a person would sit and get to learn about the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's it. And then we don't think about it till the next session, or till the next lecture, or whatever there is. No, it's something that needs to be witnessed all the time. A wife, her husband died, a mother that is breastfeeding her child, to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing her, and a father is providing for his wife. All of this is to witness constantly the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accordingly. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, rulings that should be observed. People should be patient with the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A woman, if she has a career of whatever works that she is doing, she's supposed to fulfill the orders of Allah, and to stay in her home for 4 months and 10 days. If she needs to support herself, where are the men in the society? Where are the Muslim men in the society to provide and to support and to keep the honor and the dignity of the wife, and not to use that as a way of humiliation? Many things that need to be reviewed in our life to make it according to the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, not according to the cultures or to imitating the ways of the disbelievers. We have our own way of life that brings all that is good according to the orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Qur'an and the way of the Prophet ﷺ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are steadfast on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that all Muslims are returning and back to the Qur'an and the way of the Prophet ﷺ, to hold fast to it, the source of our success in this life and in the hereafter. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا